Good evening and welcome back to Sctv, Simpson College's first student-run newscast. I'm Jake Brend and I'm excited to be back after a much-needed winter break.
And I'm Liv Allen. It is great to be back.
On Monday, the country celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Day. This year was celebrated on January 17th, and Simpson had the day off from classes to commemorate the day of service.
King was the chief spokesperson of the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s. The holiday was put in place in 1983 and became recognized by all states in 2000.
Liv has more on the impact of MLK with her story.
This past Monday, Simpson took classes off in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, a federal holiday marking the many contributions Dr. King had in the civil rights movement and our nation overall. I spoke with Simpson's Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Kia Levy, about how the Simpson community could and should acknowledge and appreciate Dr. King's impactful legacy.
I definitely support the university allowing students, staff, and faculty to really participate in the day of service. And I think, along with the national holiday, recognizing it as a national holiday is important for us as we advance diversity, equity, and inclusion to also show our support for the national holiday as well and provide that opportunity for those individuals to participate. Last week, I sent out a campus communication around Martin Luther King Jr. Day and the day of service and provided the campus community with some information as to what are some things that they can do to contribute and to observe the holiday, whether that was doing some community service, helping out local food banks or shelters, or even simply educating themselves. And I provided a list of documentaries and movies that they could watch, as well as articles and things that they could read. So I think that's definitely something that I did last week to the campus community. But I think moving forward, working with campus partners to be more intentional about providing service opportunities on campus is definitely something that we want to think about and that we've talked about and we would really like to start to implement.
Levy spoke about how she feels our community could honor the countless contributions and impact the civil rights movement and people of color have had on America all year long, not just during MLK Day or Black History Month.
Individuals typically isolate those days because they're, I guess, marketed in those ways or as particular days or months of celebration. And I think the goal of my position is to help us create a transformational change and implement these things in our lifestyle, our daily lives, right? How are we contributing to the work of Dr. Martin Luther King? How are we honoring Black History Month all year round? How are we honoring other cultures all year round, right? And the things that we're already doing. What are some of the things that we can do to be more intentional about that? And so I think that's why this position was definitely created. But I think there's also campus partners here as well that are contributing to the work of advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion as well. The only thing that we can do is educate individuals on the accurate history, the accurate themes that are being talked about across, the civil rights movement, across, movements such as Black Lives Matter and other social justice movements or critical race theory and things like that. We have to literally have the conversation and we have to debunk the myths around those topics. And that's all that we can do. Or that's the start of what we can do to advance that.
For SCTV, this is Liv Allen.
The Omicron variant of the coronavirus has hit Simpson's campus hard. As of today, there have been 90 positive cases since January 3rd.
With the uptick in cases, campus has returned to a more strict masking policy. Ethan Humble has the update on COVID protocols at Simpson.
COVID-19 masking protocols are returning to campus after a severe spread of the virus following winter break. As reported by the Simpsonian, the campus currently has an 11% positivity rate, with the number of cases already surpassing that of the entire fall semester.
Now that we are a few days into the start of the semester, we are seeing much more rapid growth of new cases on campus, which, again, exactly what we've expected that we would see.
Along with its universal indoor mask requirement, the college will now also be following the CDC's recommendation that those contracting the virus can potentially leave quarantine just 5 days after exposure rather than the previous 10.
it does put you down a little bit when you realize that, shoot, we're going to go back to campus. I'm not going to see anybody's faces again. It was something we were looking forward to.
Students fear that if the spread is too much, everyone will need to continue their schooling from home.
I do fear that we're going to go online because some of my teachers have talked about it, but I'm really hoping that we won't have to do that, so it'd be nice just to be in class and see my peers.
But also acknowledge the college is doing all it can in a tough situation.
I really admire Simpson's handling of the pandemic and the strategies we use on campus to combat whatever's happening in the world right now. And so I'm just taking it day by day, hoping for the best, doing my part to hopefully this can end sometime before my sophomore year.
Levine said there is reason for students to believe the newest variant will pass quickly through studies showing Omicron surges have been shorter than previous variants like Delta.
I am guardedly optimistic that a few weeks down the road we will have seen that peak, we'll have passed it, and we're going to be able to return to something that looks more like what the new normal had become in the fall semester.
For Sctv, Ethan Humble.
On Sunday night, there was a flood on the first floor of Barker Hall. The flood left about an inch of water in the hall of the West Wing, impacting several rooms. The flood was allegedly caused by a student throwing a football at the sprinkler in the hallway. That same student is reportedly being fined $16,000 for the damages. It's a new semester and a new year, which means that it's a brand new year for sports. But before we start covering sports in 2022, we want to look back at the memories from last year.
Jake put together SCTV's 2021 year in review with the best memories, moments, and plays.
2021 saw the return of sports and fans, and return they did. Softball and baseball played at home for the first time in 2 years. SCTV's Noah Sacco was named to the D3 Team of the Week, and Brady Held set a school record with a 1.53 ERA that led the ARC. Men's tennis made the conference tournament for the first time in school history with a 6th-place finish, while the women's team reached new heights behind future Hall of Famer Anna Wanek. The golf team started off the Jeremy Johnson era strong, showing promise for the future. Yes! The second year of the KK Plia era saw the Storm have their best conference finish since 2010, behind star transfer Jessica Jacobs. Some of our own athletes capitalized on the NCAA's new name, image, and likeness law.
Dream of being the 8th best player on the 6th best D3 tennis team in Iowa? Well, I'll give you a lesson right after I finish mine.
Sorry, I just had to plug myself. Hunter Ogle broke out as a star freshman running back with a 173-yard and 4-touchdown performance against Luther. Jordy Triana Vasquez did Jordy things all season long, but Drew Russell had the play of the year. Matty Hayes tied the quarterfinal against Central on a penalty kick and then walked off the game 20 minutes later. Men's basketball returned all-conference players Chris Hans and Andrew Curran, but Deontay Johnson has the dunk of the year. By far. Dylan McChesney pinned his way all the way to the final in the Luther Hill Invitational. Harry Dudley and Spencer Moon both finished all-conference and ran at the national championships in Louisville. The women's basketball team finished the regular season undefeated thanks to the biggest shot of Reagan Freeland's life.
Sure, but Simpson having a tough time getting the ball in bounds. Now they do. A three-pointer is attempted, and it's good! It's Reagan Freeland hitting the three-pointer. Now here comes Draper. Her last second shot is no good, and Simpson runs away with this one.
They proceeded to win not one, not two, but 3 straight games en route to their first conference championship since 2013. The Storm finished ranked top 5 nationally, and Conference Player of the Year, 6th-year senior Jenna Taylor, and 5th-year Cameron Kincaid decided to run it back this winter. They picked up right where they left off. Freeland is still giving Wartburg nightmares, and they are off to an 11-1 start. Cassie Nash and Anna Wanek are battling for the best two-sport athletes in the conference, and seniors Kaya Rasmussen, Hattie Rhodes, Kincaid, and Taylor are all leaving their impact on Simpson basketball as they chase a national championship after the new year.
The 4th-ranked Simpson women's basketball team traveled to Lincoln last week and knocked off Nebraska Wesleyan by 40 points. Yeah, 40 points. And then they went to Dubuque again on Saturday and won 97-59. I guess you could say that they're rolling. The men's team, in a bit of a rut right now, lost 69-48. And then men's and women's track and field got the second semester off to a good start with a 3rd-place finish for the men and a 4th-place finish for the women. And that's going to do it for us this week. Be sure to join us every week this semester so we can bring you the news.
As always, we would like to thank Professor Siebert, Professor Carpinelli, and Professor Steffen for making this newscast possible.
We'll see you next week, but until then, you stay classy, Simpson.